Hey guys, how you doing? Luna here with a new video. Welcome back to the channel. It's been a week since the last video. I have a few videos in mind for this next week and I'm really excited about them. But today I wanted to do something a little bit different. I wanted to talk about a certain theme that has been in my mind lately and has been kind of worrying me a little bit. Because if you guys don't know, a couple of months ago, Paul McCartney did an interview in which he sort of, actually I think it was a tweet, where he sort of explained that he wanted to use AI to finish the final Beatles song. And a lot of people have been, speculating about what he's going to do with the AI, what what his intentions are when it comes to this final Beatles song. If you know Paul McCartney, you know that he constantly likes to juice out the Beatles. Like, he really loves to put the Beatles' name in his mouth to sort of make a profit or make the news or make the headlines. And I don't really think that's a bad thing necessarily, but I do think that sometimes he takes it a little bit too far. It's not that I think that he has bad intentions whenever he does something like this. It's just that for me it's so unnecessary and so sort of disrespectful towards the memory and the legacy of the Beatles, of the actual band. It's sort of like he's playing with a concept that doesn't really just involve him, but 4 band members, out of which 2 are already dead and have been dead for at least 20 years, and or even more in the case of John Lennon. So yeah, I don't really like when Paul McCartney tries to act as a leader of the Beatles or someone who's supposed to carry on the legacy, because for me the legacy is already there and no one should touch it. No one should try to do anything with it because it's in the past. It already was. We have a wonderful discography for us to remember and for us to listen to whenever we feel like it, so why do more? And the thing is that Paul doesn't only do it with the Beatles, he also likes to use John Lennon's name a lot. Everyone that knows, about the history of the Beatles and how things were in the years the band was active, we know that they had a wonderful relationship. They were obviously really close, but somewhere along the line they lost contact. They weren't that good friends at the end, they weren't really that connected to each other in the late years of the band, 1969, 1970, and actually they were beefing for a couple of years after the band split up.
I mean, I've worked with Ringo and George. I haven't worked with Paul because we had a more difficult time, but now we're pretty close, I'm pleased that everybody's doing well, Yeah. I'm more pleased that Ringo's doing well, that he's got himself a good niche, because I knew Paul would be all right. What the hell, I'm worried about him, I know he's going to be all right.
We know that they managed to get it back together and they were friends again by the time John Lennon died, but it's nowhere near the same level of brotherhood they had when they were in the Beatles, And yeah, true, John Lennon did say a lot of good things about Paul McCartney, but I think we can all agree that they didn't really have the best relationship in the world. So I think that a lot of the times that Paul McCartney ends up talking about John Lennon, it's more to kind of please the fans that like to go to bed thinking that John Lennon and Paul McCartney were like this inseparable brothers that were always there for each other. So I think that Paul, out of pity or maybe some sort of trying to comfort the fans, makes up these stories about John Lennon that I'm not gonna say they were lies, but they just don't really seem to be connected to the stories we know from John, George, and Ringo. And I mean, again, that's just a theory I have, but the theory comes from a really deep investigation and sort of being a fan of the Beatles, a really big fan of the Beatles for so many years. You don't really see that connection that Paul often talks about in recent interviews. So when Paul goes on Twitter, I think it was, and says that he wants to use AI to make a final Beatles song, I don't really think that is a good idea at all, because I'm pretty sure you all know what song he's talking about. It's a song from 1978, I believe, called Now and Then. This was a song that John Lennon wrote and recorded on a demo tape. It's not really a finished song at all, actually. The audio is really rough. I'm pretty sure you can find a version on YouTube, or maybe they took it down already, which is another sign of this song probably being the one Paul choose to remaster, if you want to call it that way. Basically, what Paul wants to do is use AI to sort of like recover the quality of the track without recreating John Lennon's voice. But this seems a little edgy, because honestly, if you actually have listened to this version of the song, you know that John's vocals are really, really bad. Like, John wasn't never the greatest singer, but this wasn't even acceptable. So obviously, you're gonna have to at least overdub John Lennon's voice recreated by AI if you actually want to finish the song. The reason why I don't think it can be made otherwise is because they actually tried it when they did the Anthology project in 1995, I think it was. So you can't really say that you're not going to recreate John Lennon's voice, because if you're not going to, what is it that you needed AI for? Like, you definitely have everything you need to remaster a song without AI. So what is AI going to enable if it's not just overdubbing the track using a recreation of John Lennon's voice? And not only John Lennon's voice, but we also have to take into consideration George Harrison's voice. If you say that it's going to be a final Beatles song, then all four of you have to be in the song, right? I mean, that's just what you used to do. Often in every single Beatles song, you had harmonies from every single band member. You're gonna have to recreate his voice too, which again, I think it's a little bit disrespectful, because you're using someone else's voice without their creative output. Like they're not approving this. And I'm pretty sure if you know anything about the Beatles and their history, you know that often George Harrison and Paul McCartney were not in the same page when it comes to creative ideas. So I don't think it's a really good idea that Paul wants to use AI to make a final Beatles song. I actually hate it, because for me, you know, the Beatles have so many good 10 out of 10 albums. They have so much to offer already in their discography. So why the hell would you try to make more out of it? Why wouldn't you just let it be, as you know, as the album says? Why can you just let the memory of the Beatles just fade away into history like it's supposed to? Something is not good because it lasts forever, you know. Something is good because we enjoyed it when we could. And that's what the Beatles are for me, you know. I don't listen to the Beatles as much as I used to when I first found out about the band, and it's still my favorite band ever. It's still a really nice memory. There's so much more music being released every single day. Tell me a single reason why I would need this song written by John Lennon finished by you. You're not, like, who are you to finish something that wasn't your idea in the first place? And that's the thing with AI. Like, you can use it to sort of make a meme out of it. Like, I'm pretty sure all of you have heard this Eric Cartman from South Park. This cover from Eric Cartman, a character from South Park, singing "Bring Me to Life" by Evanescence. That's why AI should be used for. I'm pretty sure you all seen the Call of Duty gameplays of Joe Biden, Donald Trump, and Barack Obama. That's fucking hilarious, and it's really good, and it's good entertainment. But to actually create music, which is an art that was based off of the artist's creative output, I don't really think we should be using other people's voices, which is why I don't disagree with this whole thing that happened with when this fake Drake song was released. There's so many unreleased tracks that Paul himself had in the White Album's recordings, in the Let It Be recordings, you know, back then it was the Get Back sessions, in Abbey Road recordings. Why don't you recover those? Why you have to mess with John's recordings from in a time that he wasn't even in the Beatles? And I know what people are gonna say, but this was a tape that John made for Paul. It's called For Paul, but that doesn't really mean he has the right to just modify it however he wants to. That's the reason why a lot of people don't really like what he did when he released Let It Be Naked. If you guys don't know, that's like a stripped down version of Let It Be, the actual album, where this is how the Beatles wanted the album to sound. Who are you to say that? You don't know that. And it was just you. And actually, a lot of the times, the original cuts sound better than the ones from Let It Be Naked, with a few exceptions, and those exceptions are the cuts from Paul. The Long and Winding Road, I 100% rather the version that Paul McCartney has in Let It Be Naked. I've Got a Feeling sounds way better in Let It Be Naked. Get Back sounds way better in Let It Be Naked. But then you take tracks like I Me Mine, it doesn't sound as good as in the original. You take tracks like Across the Universe, which, by the way, John Lennon was really pleased with Phil Spector's work in that song. He stripped it down and made it an acoustic version. I don't think it sounds as good as the original, and that with a few other tracks in the album. What I'm trying to say is that, okay, I understand why Paul McCartney has this idea, and I understand what he's trying to do. I really appreciate it, by the way. I appreciate the fact that he's still active. Paul McCartney is one of my favorite, if not my favorite, solo artists ever. And I do like that he remembers the Beatles with such tenderness and care, and you can really tell that he enjoyed those years, and I'm glad that he still loves to perform the tracks from the Beatles, and I think they sound amazing, and I still think he has that energy, and I still love him as an artist. Actually, McCartney 3, his latest album, is an album that I really enjoyed, and it was really nostalgic in a way. So why is it that you still need to go back to the Beatle years and trying to get some new shits out of it? I don't need it. I don't think any Beatles fan needs it. So I guess that, for me, it's not going to be a Beatles song, and it's going to be disrespectful to the memory of John Lennon, because at the end of the day, you're using his voice and his creation, but with your ideas and with your way of doing things that, if you go back to the Beatles years, you were not always on the same page. Like, all of these modifications that you have to do to make a demo track a full track, you definitely have to create something, not only just work on what it is. So yeah, I don't think it's okay. I don't agree with this idea at all, and that's pretty much the video for today. I know that it's kind of a small rant about what Paul McCartney is doing right now. Again, I love Paul. He's one of my favorite artists ever, if not my favorite, but I just don't agree with a lot of the things he does when it comes to remembering the Beatles. Well, I think that a lot of times he only ends up overdoing stuff that people already enjoyed, which ends up making the whole thing way less enjoyable than what it originally was. So yeah, but I guess we'll see. I'm pretty sure that they're going through with this. I think I read that the song was going to be released later this year. They're still working on it, so who knows what the hell they're going to do with it. I know it's going to be extremely profitable to whoever gets the money out of that song. I don't know if it's going to be John's family, if it's going to be Paul, if it's going to be like split. I don't know how they're going to do it, but if it's going to be sent to charity, maybe, I don't know. But it is going to be really profitable. And me, I'm going to be first line to buy the record 100%. Like, I'm not even going to wait a minute to listen to this song, stream this song, and see what the hell they did with the song. But yeah, that is it for today's video, guys. I really hope that you enjoyed. If you did, go ahead and leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any other videos that I upload. Let me know what you think on this whole Paul and AI thing, and a new Beatles song, and John Lennon's voice recreated with AI. What a fucking mess. I also want to know your opinion on AI overall. How do you think AI should be implemented in music, and not only in music, overall? How do you think AI should be used by humans? I want to know your opinion, so go ahead and leave it down below. And with that being said, once again, I hope that you enjoyed, and I hope that I can see you guys soon with a new video. But until then, bye.